Hello and welcome to a special London Live Christmas programme. I'll be looking back at some of the best and most important moments on social media we've covered here on London Live News throughout 2022. I'm Hebe Campbell and here's what's coming up over the next hour. Alicia spoke to Hollywood stars on the red carpet, including Florence Pugh on the blue carpet for Tiffany about her film with Harry Styles, and Emma Thompson as she plays Miss Trunchbull in the remake of Matilda. We'll bring you up to date on that. We'll also be looking back at the protests that took place in the capital this year, from the war in Ukraine to the death of Mahsa Amini to climate protesters. We'll be taking you through all of that and showing you the clips that trended online. And we'll be looking at the biggest social media stories around the royal family, from the Queen's love of dogs to remembering the people's princess, Diana, Princess of Wales. Now, in this segment, we'll be reliving the biggest social media stories of 2022 for the UK. So starting with the biggest news of the year, Her Majesty the Queen passing away peacefully in September. Well, social media was flooded by people paying their respects to Her Majesty. And here's a look at some of the politicians and celebrities that took to social media to pay tribute to her as the sad news broke. Well, that day, Elton John trended on Instagram with his tribute while he was performing at a concert. Let's take a look at that.
But of course, you know, today we had the saddest news about the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. And she was an inspiring presence to be around, and I've been around her, and she was fantastic. And she led the country through some of our greatest and darkest moments with grace, decency, and a genuine caring warmth. I'm, 75, she's been with me all my life, and I feel very sad that she won't be with me anymore. But I'm glad she's at peace, and I'm glad she's at rest, and she deserves it. She's worked bloody hard. I send my love to her family and her loved ones, and she will be missed, but her spirit lives on, and we celebrate her life tonight with music, okay?
Well, later on in the programme, we'll be bringing you more of this and going through the events following the Queen's death through social media clips. Well, this year, we started off with Boris Johnson as our Prime Minister, but as scandal followed him, we were faced with our second PM of the year, Liz Truss. We then lived through our shortest ever Prime Minister premiership at a grand total of 44 days in office, not even leaving Liz Truss time to fully move into Downing Street. Well, given the political drama around Westminster in the lead up to the resignation, from the mini-budget announcement to the cabinet changing by the day, I made a summary about what actually happened in the days leading up to her resignation. Here's the video. Prime Minister Liz Truss has officially stepped down after just 6 weeks in post, and now officially the shortest serving PM in our country's history. Just yesterday, Truss said during the PMQs that she was a fighter, not a quitter. So let's have a look at how we got here. Here's a timeline of what went wrong. The controversy started with the mini-budget announcement, which crashed the economy and sent interest rates flying high and almost triple what they were before the announcement. A month later, after losing 2 cabinet members and a U-turn on most of the mini-budget, new controversy seemed to be the nail in the coffin for this Prime Minister, after a Labour MP accused the cabinet members of pressuring Tory MPs to vote in favour of fracking, with Chris Bryant saying he saw a senior Tory MP manhandling one of the whips by pulling them into the voting lobby. A recent YouGov poll also showed Labour comfortably ahead, with well over 50% saying that they would now vote Labour, showing a stark decline in support for the Conservative Party. Well, an investigation into the claims that manhandling took place has been launched, so only time will tell. And I guess you could say the same for the future of the Conservative Party. Well, a wilting 60p iceberg lettuce from Tesco in a blonde wig was crowned the winner of a competition after outlasting Truss's grip on power. Well, London Live's James Dickman had a look into other things that lasted longer than Liz Truss in number 10, from Love Island to lockdowns. Let's have a look.
That lettuce, eh? In its small blonde wig, whether she likes it or not, it might just define Liz Truss's political career. What else has lasted longer than Truss's 44 days in power? Well, every single Love Island finalist relationship lasted longer outside the villa, and the season of the show itself takes longer at 56 days. The first coronavirus UK lockdown lasted longer, from March to June 2020. Sam Allardyce, as England manager, took 67 days before he was sacked for doing some dodgy deals after one successful game in charge. The London 2012 torch relay took 2 months between May and July to kick off the Olympic Games. The Tory leadership race she won took 54 days. And of course, the last person and Tory to have the title as shortest PM ever, George Canning, in the 1820s, with 118 days before he died of tuberculosis.
Well, now on to our third PM of the year. Rishi has already outlived Liz Truss's premiership by a couple of weeks. Well, one more piece of political drama that sent our social media crazy was the news that Matt Hancock, the former Health Secretary and still a sitting MP, was going to be entering the jungle. After coming third, he later announced that he will no longer be standing as an MP in the next election, and has since been seen at celebrity hotspots such as Capital's Jingle Bell Ball earlier this month. Well, here's a clip of the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards Watchdog, Catherine Stone, saying her office had received dozens of complaints about Matt Hancock swapping Westminster for the Australian jungle. This clip trended on our Twitter, racking up tens of thousands of views. Let's have a listen.
My office has, in recent weeks, received dozens of complaints about the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock's choice to appear on a reality television programme while sitting as a Member of Parliament, a choice that's resulted in him losing the whip, and it raises really important questions about members' proper activities while they're supposed to be fulfilling their parliamentary duties and representing their constituents. And if I may, I'd like to share some correspondence that I had from a member of the public on this matter. One member of the public contrasted the dignity of veterans on Remembrance Sunday with a former Secretary of State, and they said this individual was waiting for a buffet of animal genitalia, and they wondered what had happened to the dignity of public office.
Next story that cooked up a storm on social media was Storm Eunice itself, as 80-mile-an-hour winds hit the capital in February, causing absolute mayhem across the city. Well, one video that went viral was footage from Big Jet TV of a plane looking a little worse for wear as it attempted to land mid-storm at Heathrow, with this video racking up over 500,000 views on our social media.
Oh man, fair play if you make it, mate. Fair play if you make it. This is it. Go on, you can do it. You can do it. Come on. Oh! No! No! Come on, mate. Get it down. Get it down. Go on, lad. Oh, yeah! Oh! Oh, yeah! Oh! Oh, hold on a minute, it's not over yet! Yeah! Well done, that man or woman!
And another quite shocking video caught the attention of our social media followers, which was the roof of the O2 ripping off amid this storm. Well, all of the performances were rescheduled and the roof was safely restored very, very quickly. Up next is, of course, the Lionesses stealing our hearts and the Euro Cup this summer after winning against Germany. The scenes at Trafalgar Square of the team making history and celebrating stormed the internet and changed the way women's football is seen forever. So this celebration was so much more than just a football win. Here's a look. From the Mayor to the Queen, messages of joy flooded the internet as the Lionesses brought it home. Here's a look at some of the congratulations tweets that they received on the day. Well, one girl inspired by the Lionesses was 8-year-old Evie, who couldn't quite believe the size of Wembley when she arrived to watch the final. Here's a look.
Massive, isn't it?
Well, we're heading to a short break now, but coming up in just a few moments, we're going to look at some of the international news stories that trended on our social media this year and how Londoners got involved with activism and protests. Stay with us. Welcome back. In this section, we're going to be looking at protests and activism across the capital that caught the eyes of our social media followers this year. Well, throughout the year, we've been covering the disruption caused by climate protester group Just Stop Oil. The scale of their disruption this year has been so severe that the Met Police are now working with the government to bring in new laws around illegal protests. Well, Just Stop Oil only began in February, calling on the British government to commit to halting fossil fuel licensing and production. Well, let's start with the most memorable of all their disruptions, which was when activists from the group threw soup at Van Gogh's sunflowers in the National Gallery. The footage trended on social media, causing outrage and getting the media attention that Just Stop Oil were looking for. It's important to mention, however, that there is a glass cover over this painting, so the painting was not actually damaged.
Wildfires and severe droughts. We cannot afford new oil and gas. It is going to take everything we know and love.
Please, folks. Out the room, please.
We will warn everything.
Another social media clip that trended on our platforms this year were the drivers clashing with these protesters, with some of the activists being dragged off the roads. Let's take a look.
Someone, I will start moving these people myself. I ain't about. I ain't about. I ain't about. Right. Who wants to help me? I don't give a flying about your television.
I've got those skills. There's people here. I've got those skills. I don't care. There's no excuse me. I don't care. Move. People. I don't care. Don't speak to me.
Somebody's sick. Get off the road. Let her through and then get back on the road. Somebody is unwell. Are you guys silly?
Next up is when they sprayed orange paint on the front of Harrods and on New Scotland Yard. Here's the video.
What are you doing?
I don't know why you're going to get...
I'm doing this because we live in a country innocent until proven guilty, and yet we are holding innocent protesters, peaceful protesters, in prison, and all they're doing is standing up to the corrupt government and the corporations. Joshua Smith is in prison, and he's been there for 7 months. We are innocent until proven guilty. Joshua Smith is in prison for 7 months for peacefully protesting against his corrupt government and corporations. We will not stand by and let this government destroy our country. We love our country. We love the people in our country. We're going to be on the right side of history.
Well, in February, the capital also saw huge protests on the steps of Downing Street as Putin declared war with Ukraine. These protests lasted weeks and brought thousands of people calling on the government to urgently put further sanctions on Russia and cut them off. Well, the government, along with other countries, did sanction Russia, but unfortunately, Putin's war still continues to this day. Well, our followers on social media loved the video of sunflowers being placed outside the embassy in the capital, racking up 15,000 views. The sunflower represents a symbol of peace and has been used globally, standing in solidarity with Ukraine. Let's take a look at the social media clip. Well, I went down to the first protest outside Downing Street the weekend following the invasion in February, and here's a bit of what I saw. As Russia enters day 5 of the Ukrainian invasion, the biggest European conflict since the Second World War, protests are taking place around the world in solidarity with Ukraine, with many taking place here across England calling for further sanctions on Russia. I went down to one protest outside Downing Street this weekend, where thousands of people gathered, many of which were Ukrainians living in London, with family stuck in the war-torn country. People were holding daffodils representing solidarity with Ukraine, along with posters and Ukrainian flags. In this video, you can hear them chanting "Switch off SWIFT." Now, SWIFT is a messaging system that runs on a network of financial institutions. It's used by thousands of banks worldwide to communicate information on financial transactions in a really secure way. And yesterday, the EU, the UK and other allies committed to removing several Russian banks from SWIFT, aiming to significantly harm Putin's ability to finance this war. Many people, however, are calling for all Russian banks to be taken off SWIFT rather than just selected ones. The UK government have been sanctioning Russia since just before the invasion began, and today they have announced even further sanctions against Russia's central bank, another huge blow to the economics of the country, while also supplying military aid to Ukraine. However, many are still saying that they have not gone far enough, as Boris Johnson finds himself under increasing pressure to widen sanctions on more oligarchs in London. Well, moving on to Iran. Well, in September, following the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, protests began erupting in the country and across the world, including here in the capital. Amini died under suspicious circumstances after being arrested by the religious morality police of the Islamic Republic of Iran for not wearing the hijab in accordance with the government standards. Since the protest began, according to Iran Human Rights, at least 450 people have been killed by security forces, including 29 women and 60 children. Well, Sarah from London Live went down and spoke to people at the protest in Trafalgar Square. Here's the social media video.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Terrorist Khomeini! 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 Shame on you! Shame on you!
Murderer Raisi! Shame on you! Shame on you!
Murderer Raisi! Shame on you! Shame on you!
Want to back up, Mama? Murderer Raisi! Shame on you! Shame on you!
We are here to support Iranian people who are demonstrating in Iran. They are being killed and shot by Iranian forces, and we want to be the voice of them. Mahsa Amini, a 22 years old people are demonstrating in Iran right now. So far it's 8 days that they keep pushing, but at the end of the day they've been killed and they have no voice. And we are here to show to the world that what people are doing and they just say no to dictator.
They did shut down the internet back in Iran, and we need more support from the whole world.
I'm Iranian, but I am British Egyptian, and I've just been watching these protests on social media. I've just been really moved by it, and I just felt like I had to show solidarity. And I do know some Iranians as well, and I just felt like I had to show up and show my support for the brave Iranians. Because the courage that they have to do what they're doing right now is mind-blowing. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it if I was living in Iran. So I thought the least I could do is show up and just lend my voice for a day.
Well, in response to the courageous protesters in Iran, many of whom have lost their lives, the Islamic Republic say it has paused hardline morality police blame for the death of Mahsa Amini and say they're reviewing mandatory headscarf laws. Well, Pride took over central London this July, with organisers estimating that over 1 million people took part in the first in-person parade of its kind since the pandemic broke out. Well, T from London Live went down to the parade and got some snaps which trended on our social media. Here's a look at the video. You're watching a special programme from London Live. We're heading to a really short break, but coming up in just a few minutes, we'll be looking at the Queen's life and some of the biggest stories on social media from the royals this year. Stay with us. Welcome back to a special show from London Live, looking at some of the biggest social media stories over the year. This section, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest social media stories from the royal family this year. Well, in September, as the country mourned our longest reigning monarch, the capital came to a standstill and social media was flooded with tributes. Well, one of the many things that will always remind us of the Queen is a corgi dog. The Queen was the owner of over 30 corgis, with the odd Labrador over the course of 70-odd years. Following the death of the Queen, Alicia took a look at the corgis that stood beside the Queen throughout her reign. Here's a look.
And where did you come? I know what you want.
The Queen was devoted to her corgis. Her first, Susan, was given to her as an 18th birthday present by her parents in 1944. Susan became the founder of the Queen's royal dog dynasty, but she was not always well behaved, known for being rather partial to going for servants' legs. During her reign, the Queen owned more than 30 corgis, with many of them direct descendants from Susan, who was so loved that she accompanied Princess Elizabeth on her honeymoon. In April 2018, the Queen was left devastated when Willow, her final corgi descended from Susan, died. Perhaps less associated with the Queen were her Labradors and Cocker Spaniels, which were bred and kept at Sandringham and were also firm favourites. Her Majesty leaves behind 3 surviving dogs, 2 corgis and 1 dorgie.
Well, people showed up in their hundreds of thousands to pay their respects at Buckingham Palace. And while the Queen was lying in state in Westminster Abbey, a queue down the river began growing as people from all across the world waited days in the freezing colds to pay their respects to her. Tanya went down to meet a few in the 10-mile queue, and here's the video.
We've come down to the queue. We didn't really know what to expect. It's just gone past 6 o'clock and we're between Lambeth and Westminster Bridge and people have come out in their hundreds. The weather's definitely not on our side, but it hasn't stopped people. And there's a real sense of camaraderie down here. People are really dedicated to wanting to get to that front of the queue and get their opportunity to pay their respects to the Queen. We've been speaking to some of the people that have been camping out here overnight to find out what it's been like. How long have you been here for?
Well, I got here about 8 o'clock last night.
About 12 hours.
And what's it been like for the last 12 hours?
Wet.
Wet, cold, uncomfortable, lack of sleep.
But this guy's come from America.
Good company.
Wow, so did you fly here especially for the funeral?
I did.
That's incredible. What does the Queen mean to you? You've made such a huge journey to come here and pay your respects.
You know, she's just an incredible lady. I mean, just such a example of dignity and grace in a world that lacks dignity and grace. So she's just awesome. I love her.
I've been here since about 11:45 last night, and so far it's been all right. You've got to kind of keep with the times. Everyone seems to be a bit upbeat, but I know eventually when I get to see Her Majesty, it won't be like that. I'll be probably crying. I've been brought up with the Queen all my life. You know, that she's the only thing I've known since I was a youngster, joining all the organisations that she's patron of, joined the military. So I'm pretty devastated that from being here Tuesday and then passing away on Thursday. It's been pretty tearful.
Well, I've come prepared with plenty of food and drink. Nice policeman gave me a tinfoil blanket, and the lady next to me has just gone off for breakfast.
I served in the army for quite a good many years, and obviously to me it's very important to come down here and say farewell to my Commander-in-Chief, as it were. All the medals I've got her head on them, and you know, she served us for 70 years, so for me to span, overnight here is nothing really. It's not real at the moment, although I've seen obviously the pictures of the coffin at Balmoral and everything else. For me, this is where I need to be, and to be able to say thank you and goodbye.
Well, as the queue grew, Prince William, alongside other members of the royal family, headed down to meet the people waiting and shake their hands. But one encounter in particular caught the eyes of our social media followers. Here's a look.
Is he going to go the whole way with you?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, one more thing that will always remind us of Her Majesty the Queen is coronation chicken. But have you ever wondered what it's actually got to do with the royal family? Well, Alicia had a look into this for us. Here's the video.
Coronation chicken, the dish created to feed 350 foreign dignitaries after the service at Westminster Abbey. The coronation of Queen Elizabeth II took place on the 2nd of June 1953, and the recipe consists of 2 roasting chickens, peppercorns and curry sauce, seen here in a copy of the original cookbook, the Constance Spry Cookery Book. Angela Wood was 18 when she helped to create the dish, and she returned to make it for the Queen at Sandringham earlier this year to mark the Jubilee. She was told it still makes regular appearances at the palace.
Probably quite different, because nowadays we do things quite differently.
We do slightly different.
Because in those days, just after rationing, it was, yes, so there was very little imported food of any sort.
Still a staple sandwich filler many years on, the dish was served at Jubilee celebrations across the country earlier this year.
Well, staying on the topic of the royal family, this August marked the anniversary of Princess Diana's death 25 years ago. Londoners paid their respects in so many ways across the capital, but probably the most visible was the thousands laying flowers outside Kensington Palace. Here's an interview with some people who came down to remember the people's princess.
It's difficult not to admire her. It's difficult to know her through one-to-one and not see that thing in her. That thing that, I mean, we can't really put our hands on.
Well, just to remember, where's 25 years of my life gone? You know, and still we're thinking about her, remembering her, and the legacy she left of her sons, and they're at war with each other, so we're led to believe. And the wives are at war. And it's a terribly sad situation because I used to see her quite frequently with the children, you know. Very sad.
Right, we're heading to a really short break, but don't go anywhere because when we're back, our presenter Alicia Edwards has been speaking to Florence Pugh, Chris Evans and Emma Thompson on the red carpet. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Over the next 10 minutes, we're going to be looking at the biggest social media clips that you guys enjoyed from the red carpet. Well, let's start with Alicia's trip to Tiffany's exhibition in London in June, where she caught up with Florence Pugh on the blue carpet, who spoke to Alicia about her film alongside Harry Styles. She also caught up with some of Bridgerton stars about the newest series, sending us viral on social media with quite literally hundreds of thousands of you guys tuning in to hear what these guys had to say. Let's take a look.
Every single time I'm allowed to wear things like this, I'm so nervous that either the clasp is going to go or I'm going to miss an earring. I think it's a huge luxury that we get to, A, play dress up behind camera and also play dress up on the carpet. And it's our responsibility to make sure it stays on, I think always, but it's always fun.
Yeah, it must be absolutely terrifying. You've obviously got Don't Worry Darling coming out in a couple of months. What can you tell us about it?
I can't tell you anything. Yeah, what can I tell you? It's very glamorous, and it was a joy to head into the hair and makeup trailer every single day, talking about stepping into a character and, you know, wearing wonderful things and beautiful clothing. That was definitely a job where I admired the work of the hair and makeup and the costume department every single day. They did an amazing job.
Looking at the trailer, it just looks like such an amazingly shot, beautiful film.
Lee Boutique, unbelievable. The way that everything looks delicious and golden, he's a gem.
And working really closely with Harry Styles as well. How was that?
Of course. Well, I think obviously everybody is going to be asking that question, but a total professional, and it was a great experience working together.
You have to come with me to watch him at Wembley next week.
Yeah, are you going? Oh my God, have an amazing time.
I'm sure we'll put on a great show.
Do you know all the songs?
Of course.
Have you learned
and the new album.
Fantastic. Then you're good. You're laughing.
I was just saying earlier, I think it's 128 carat diamonds that we're going to see in person. So yeah, very, very grateful to be here and to see it in person and to learn about the origin of Tiffany. Yeah.
Such an amazing brand, isn't it? For you at the moment, work-wise, what are you working on? What's coming out?
Well, I'm standing next to the leading lady for season 3 of Bridgerton. Nicola plays Lady Whistledown, Penelope in Bridgerton, and I play Kate. So we're continuing with season 3, and there's many different exciting projects, both in film and fashion, that I'm very excited to announce.
So we're prepping for Bridgerton season 3. I just got the first script today, so it was very exciting to read it. We're filming starting in a couple of weeks, and lots of costume fittings, and yeah, getting back in the corset after after a few months off. Yeah.
I suppose you can't tell me anything at all about it.
It's about love. It's exciting. I think Colin and Penelope are both due a glow up this year, and I had one costume that I put it on and it made me tear up because it was like, whoa, it's major. John Glazer's our costume designer this year. He was with us on season 1. He's going back as head designer, and he is a true genius. And Jess Brownell, our new showrunner, is amazing. So I think people are going to be very excited, yeah.
I've been wearing Tiffany since I was a baby, and I had a, Tiffany piggy bank when I was little, and I still have it to this day. It's in my room back in New Jersey. And so to be here is such a beautiful full circle moment. Tiffany has jeweled me for my first Oscars, when I performed at the Grammys. It's just really nice to be here celebrating them because they've always celebrated me.
Well, in July, Alicia also headed down to the Buzz Lightyear premiere, where she caught up with Chris Evans, who's front of stage as Buzz, Keke Palmer, who plays Izzy Hawthorne, who's an idealistic young recruit who fights alongside Buzz Lightyear, and many more on the red carpet in central London, including a real-life astronaut. Here's what they had to say ahead of the film premiere.
It's the film about the man that inspired the toy. We're here at the premiere of Lightyear.
After a full year of being marooned on this planet, our first test flight is a go. Let's get everyone home.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what they set out to do, to make a science fiction action adventure, not just for kids, but for adults, as all Pixar movies always are. They're great for kids, but adults can enjoy them as well.
Chris, your character travels time in the movie. If you could travel time and go anywhere, where would it be?
I'd probably go to the future. I mean, as much as I'm nostalgic for the past, I'm curious as to how we're doing in 50, 60 years.
Tim, you voiced Mission Control for the movie. What was that like for you, getting in the voice booth?
It was brilliant. I mean, it's a very small part, but what an experience to be involved in a Disney Pixar movie. Great fun.
Have you got to hear it back yet, or is tonight the first time?
No, I got to watch the whole movie last week on the big screen, and it's so exciting. And it's laugh out loud in places as well. It's a great journey. It's a really an emotional journey as well, following Buzz and the team through. So no, I've enjoyed every step of the way. And getting to meet the Disney team and seeing the hard work that goes on behind the scenes has been unbelievable.
Very different from your regular work. What's it been like being part of the whole Disney Pixar machine?
Yeah, very different from my usual work. But you know what? It's been very similar in some respects. When you see the team working together in a very international environment, what they're trying to achieve, loads of moving parts coming together, the amount of collaboration that's required, it's not dissimilar to preparing for a mission to space. And the end product is something that's really good, really inspiring. I think young people are going to love it, but old people too. We can all take away messages from this movie.
At what stage of your career were you at when the first Toy Story arrived, when Buzz Lightyear appeared?
Yeah, so I was in my early 20s, so I was a pilot. I was aspiring to be a test pilot, not unlike Buzz in terms of what he's trying to do, pushing the boundaries and exploring new concepts. So for me, it was all about flying when I was watching the first Toy Story movie.
Isn't that something?
We're all ready if you are, sir.
Well, let's go find out if this...
It feels so surreal. I'm just grateful for the experience and just trying to stay present and enjoy every moment of it and have fun. I mean, I love the movie myself. It was enjoyable to watch with my nieces and my nephew. And I even took a couple of lessons myself, so it's definitely impactful.
The same-sex kiss in the film got taken out, put back in, is back in. Yes. As a cast member, how do you feel about that?
I'm glad they put it back in. At the end of the day, this movie is the movie that Andy watched that made him fall in love with Buzz Lightyear. And what that essentially says to me is that we're now making sure that we represent in film the faces that have always been a part of the story. And that includes LGBTQ+, that includes women, that includes black women, that includes all people. And so I think it's just important that we show that.
Hello, Buzz. I am Socks, your personal companion robot.
We're being pursued by just a massive robot.
You've obviously been involved in every different aspect that there virtually is in film production. How is it voicing a character? Do you still act while you're in the booth?
It's really different. I'm like an emotive person with my body and with my stupid face and stuff, but to be in the booth where your face means nothing, I mean, they still kind of film you for some facial reference, but it's all about your voice. And to be in there, it was a massive learning curve, and Angus, the director, really showed me the way, and he held my hand through it, because I didn't realize, there are hundreds of ways to say just a normal sentence, like, anyone need a pen? And it turns out there's a lot of ways you can say it.
And I regret having joined you.
Lightyear!
let all the children moving.
There we have it, Chris Evans alongside a real-life astronaut there. Now on to Roald Dahl's much-loved tale of Matilda hitting the big screen in the capital in October. The film stars Emma Thompson as Miss Trunchbull, as well as a newcomer, Alicia Weir, in the title role. Well, Alicia went down to the film's official launch in the capital to chat to the cast, and here's what they told her.
I saw the original musical Trunchbull, played by Bertie Carvel, who's just so wonderful. I wrote him a fan letter, actually. He was just a genius. And I thought, oh, God, that's a really tough act to follow. And I did my best anyway, so.
How did you find the costume and the prosthetics?
Well, I mean, they did all the work for me in a way, you know, inhabiting that incredible makeup. I always used to say that 5 people played Trunchbull. I just happened to be one of them.
If you were at Crunch'em Hall yourself
Yes.
when you were younger, would you have ended up in the Chokey, do you think?
Oh, constantly, I would have thought, yes. I would have probably had my very own Chokey. Actually, when I was little, I was quite well behaved, you know. It took me until I got into my 20s to become slightly more outrageous.
A little bit naughty?
A little bit naughty.
Mrs. Phelps, where's the revenge section? Sometimes you have to be a little bit naughty.
Where's my hat?
When you're out and about and you find, you meet people in the street, they're a fan of your work, of all the many roles that you've played, is there one that you think people are the most attached to?
People tend to be the most attached to the Love Actually crying scene. They get quite... Because, I don't know, I think everybody's been through something like that, so it speaks to them, you know. But then what's interesting is, because I've kind of dotted about and done lots of different kinds of things, it could be anything. It could be something, people will suddenly say, oh, I loved you in something that I made 30 years ago, you know, in Ukraine, and nobody's seen it since. And yeah, I mean, it's strange. People get attached to different things for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think that's nicer than being attached to one part that you have to play again and again. I don't think I'd like that.
Yeah. How are you finding all of this stuff?
Very surreal, very crazy. I can't really believe what's going on, and it hasn't sunk in yet, and I don't know if it will ever sink in, but it definitely hasn't. I'm just so excited, and it's just amazing.
I'm sure it will, because I'm sure you're going to be doing a lot more of these in years to come. Tell me about the process of getting the part and what it was like when you found out the news that you were going to be starring as Matilda.
So I go to a stage school, and then my agent from the stage school sent me through to see if I wanted to do a self-tape. A few weeks later, I was meant to fly over, but because of COVID, everything was a lot slower and I couldn't fly over. So it took kind of over a year, and I did a lot over Zoom, 7 maybe. And then they asked me to fly over to do one in person. And then 2 weeks later, on my mum's birthday, the 10th of December, we got a call off Matthew, the director, to say that I got the part. And I couldn't believe it. I was just shocked, and I just burst into tears.
Did you already know all of the songs before you got the part?
Yes, definitely.
Which one was your favourite before, and is it still your favourite now that you've been in the film?
My 2 favourites were Naughty and Quiet, and now after I finished the film, it's definitely both of them, but I love the new song as well, Still Holding My Hand.
Right, well that's it from me today. Thank you so much for joining us on this special show. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, but from me and the team at London Live, have a great evening and happy holidays.